Today's text comes from pages 8 to 17. Listen as I read page 8 to 17. Write down any words that are unfamiliar or that you don't know. Try to figure out what these words mean. Now I will begin. Page 8. The grass. With the death of the buffalo, the Indian War was over. The settlers faced a new fight, the Battle of the Grasses. Over the eons, the prairie grasses had adapted to the Great Plains. Frequent droughts by growing tough roots to hold in moisture. These roots were wide and deep and held the rich soil in place. The buffalo's sharp hooves and the Indian prairie fires had helped keep the grasses healthy. But the new settlers did not understand the importance of grass. Early settlers were ranchers and cowboys. They brought fences and cattle to the plain. The cattle did not roam, so they ate too much of the grass within their fences. Their flat hooves packed the earth. Air and rainwater no longer reached into the soil. The later settlers wanted to farm the land, so they tore out the grasses and planted crops to sell. Steel plows and steam tractors were invented to conquer the grassland, and the great plowed up began. Wheat, corn, and soybeans were planted. These crops have shallow, fragile roots. This is a picture of a steam tractor as it plows up the roots. Page 10. At first, the crops flourished in the prairie sunshine and timely rain. New railroads carried the harvest to distant markets. Now, not one orange buffalo wobbled to its feet. The lark that had once eaten the insects living in the grass did not sing. The prairie dogs were silent. Without the buffalo, without the grasses, and without the Indians to care for them, the prairie was in danger. The settlers would soon learn why. Drought came, as it had before. Billions of grasshoppers swept down on the plains. Long ago, when drought came and the grasshopper chewed the healthy grasses, the plants would grow back. Their tough roots always survived. But when the fragile crops were chewed by the grasshopper, nothing grew back. Suddenly, the grasshopper laid eggs and flew on. The farmers replanted their crops. They did not know they had begun to destroy the prairie. Page 11. This is a picture of the farmers fighting off the grasshoppers and the locusts in the fields. Page 12. When the buffalo lived on the prairie, their sharp hooves helped rain reach deep into the earth, and the tough roots of the grass held in the wet. Now, no moisture remained in the soil. The farmer's crop withered and died. In the 1930s, the plow's earth finally crumbled to dust. The wind eroded the land, picking up the dust and boiling into terrifying black clouds. The clouds rained dirt. Barns, farms, houses, and towns were buried beneath the dust. People coughed, choked, and grew ill. Many died. Hungry and penniless, plains farmers and townsmen packed up their belongings and sold their worthless land to the government. The prairie soil had blown away. The land was no longer rich, and the farmers climbed into their old cars and left. The great plow-up had been a disaster. In just over 50 years, it had destroyed the buffalo, the protected prairie grasses, and the Indians who cared for both. What could be done to save the prairie? This is a picture of the black clouds that harm the prairie. This is a picture of the townsmen and the farmers as they left. They had given up on the prairie. The prairie comeback. In the beginning of the 1900s, America elected a president who had once been a hunter on the Great Plains. He knew and loved the land and wanted to protect it for future generations. Nature-loving President Theodore Roosevelt especially wanted to save the buffalo. He was very fond of the great American grazer with his humpback and shaggy coat. So he sent out scouts to look for wild buffalo. The scouts came back with nothing, all the scouts but one. A naturalist named W.T. Hornaday looked and would not give up. On a tip from a Crow Indian, he rode his horse into a secluded meadow in Montana, a place that had been hidden away from the world. There before him grazed 300 buffalo. A little orange calf wobbled to her feet and blinked. A lark flew to a blade of grass and sang as sweetly as a panpipe. And this is a picture of Theodore Roosevelt, the president who saved the prairie. What did you find most surprising about pages 8 through 17? What I found most surprising about pages 8 through 17 is that in just 50 years, the settlers and the farmers and the townsmen destroyed the prairie in just 50 years, a place that the Native Americans had kept healthy so that the buffalo could roam for centuries. Think about all the gist from this section of the text. What happened? What important information did the author share? Take a moment and think. The gist of this section is that buffalo made the prairie healthy, but people killed all of the buffalo. The settlers dug up the grasses that protect the prairie and planted crops. These crops' shallow roots caused dust storms, and the people left the prairie. Theodore Roosevelt wanted to protect the buffalo. One scout, W.T. Hornaday, found 300 buffalo in Montana. That is the gist of this section of the text. Now we will look at our think steps to see if we can find out those unfamiliar words that you wrote out.